Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Step Up Blackboard Training. Today we're going to be talking about alcohol myths and facts. The big reason that Kevin and I looked at wanting to give this information to you is because it's really hard to be an active bystander around alcohol if you don't have the knowledge base to help you understand when something's a problem, and also to have that conversation with others about what the effects of alcohol are and when that behavior turns problematic. If you're looking for a presentation that's going to tell you not to consume alcohol ever and that alcohol is the worst thing in the world, this is not that presentation. My goal with this is not to convince you not to drink, it's just to give you more information so that you can identify what problem behaviors look like, and also give you greater understanding of why this is the drug of choice with many sexual assaults and why it is a significant problem for our college student population. As the first part of our presentation, I'm going to put out a series of statements. Some of them will be myths, some of them will be facts. Please feel free to guess as we go along. I'm not just going to throw out whether it's a myth or fact right at the beginning. You'll have a moment to do so. After we kind of get into the myths and facts a little bit, we'll transition into talking more statistics because there is a wealth of data around this subject. So I find it interesting and I hope you do too. So getting started, the first statement I've got is you can drink and still be completely in control. So that is a myth. When you consume alcohol, it impairs your judgment. And in fact, not only does it impair your judgment is the first thing to start to go. And it's before you even realize it. So you might not even realize that the alcohol is already taking effect. Now, why we worry about that judgment piece is because when your judgment's impaired, it increases the likelihood that you'll do something you later regret. It's those embarrassing memories, or even kind of that fear of like, oh my God, I can't remember part of last night. What did I do? And we live in the age of YouTube. So odds are you can typically find out what happened during that missing gap. The other piece is that it also makes you easier to be victimized by others. Now, that's not to say you're responsible for what somebody else does to you while you are intoxicated or impaired. What that means is you become an easier victim. And that's whether it's sexual assaults, whether it's theft, whether it's violent crime. Whereas if you were completely sober, you might have kind of that like voice in your head going, that person's standing too close to me. I don't like how that person's looking at me. Why, like, this guy has been following me home since I was at the party, or that corner's not really well lit and it's kind of creepy. Those are things that are going through your mind or could be going through your mind when you're completely sober. Now, that doesn't give somebody license to take advantage of you, but it's a lot easier to take advantage of someone or to harm someone who's not operating at 100%. And when you consume alcohol, you're not. It's that piece where the judgment comes in. So the next statement, drinking can have dangerous consequences. That is a fact. So among college students, alcohol contributes to deaths from alcohol-related unintentional injuries as well as assaults, and it relates to poor academics. So more often than not, when we see something terrible happen to a college student, there's alcohol involved in some sort of fashion, whether it's the student who was victimized was consuming alcohol or whether they were harmed by somebody else who was. This is where people think it's a great idea to dive off balconies. So that's that unintentional injury. When people drink and get behind the wheel of a car, when they're walking home and they wander out into traffic, these are all things that, the alcohol didn't kill them. However, it did impair their judgment and they did wander into the road and they probably wouldn't have done that sober. So that's where we start looking at those dangerous consequences. But the other piece is that poor academic performance. Ideally, you're here to gain knowledge and skills and complete that degree. And there are some very real academic consequences to alcohol consumption. Now, like anything else, I'm not saying when you're of age, having a beer or two with pizza is going to be terrible. No, like there is such a thing as responsible drinking. What I'm saying is that when you start adding in these other behavior patterns, we start looking at risk. And when you increase risk, you look at some of these dangerous consequences. So the next thing, if I have to sober up quickly, I can. And that is a myth. The only thing that can help you sober up is time. You are looking at a metabolic reaction. So cold showers, coffee, food, these are not things that will help you sober up. They might help make you feel better, but they're not physiologically going to make you metabolize that alcohol faster. And something else to keep in mind is that it takes about an hour for the adult body to eliminate the alcohol content of a single drink. And by a single drink, I'm talking standard, 1 to 1.5 ounces of an 80 proof liquor, 1 12-ounce regular old can of beer, an 8-ounce can or an 8-ounce serving of a craft beer, one drink. So, especially if you're still consuming alcohol at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday night, Friday morning, you've had, let's say 6 or 7 drinks, you might still be intoxicated when it comes time for that 9 o'clock class Friday morning. And so keep in mind that on average, it does take about an hour for the adult body to eliminate the alcohol content, but we all process alcohol differently. And that can vary from person to person as well. So some folks are going to metabolize faster, some folks are going to metabolize slower. So that part of that is also knowing your body. Drinking to keep up with a partner or friend is okay. So this is a myth. Now, it's also a very trickily worded question. By drinking to keep up with a partner or friend is okay. What I'm trying to get across is that, if Kevin and I, who are physiologically very different people, are going shot for shot, it's going to affect us differently. Kevin's still going to be standing and I'm going to be on the floor. It's just, he's a bigger person, he's male, he processes alcohol differently than I do. And there's nothing that Kevin or I can do to change that, but it's something that we need to understand. So, and not only does everybody process alcohol differently, but we all can process alcohol differently on different days. Because it is a metabolic reaction, there are different factors at play here. So if you are very excited, let's say, you just got asked out, or you just asked out the person that you've been interested in, or you just had that first kiss or something else, and your emotions are high and you're really, really excited, and you start drinking alcohol, that alcohol is actually, you're going to get more intoxicated quicker because of, your body is excited and you're ready to go and you're processing it differently versus if you were just kind of very mellow, very flat affect, it's been just kind of a chill day, if you've had a good meal, you might be processing it a little bit slower. And truly, it can depend on, have you been sick recently? How much sleep did you get last night? There are so many factors. So just because 4 drinks and you were fine 2 days ago doesn't mean 4 drinks and you'll be fine tonight. So it's, take it slow and really kind of feel out how you're processing that alcohol each time. So developing a high tolerance to alcohol is a sign that you might be developing a serious problem with alcohol. That is a fact. If each time you drink, you need to drink an increasingly larger amount of alcohol to get a buzz or that high, you're developing a tolerance. And when you start developing that tolerance, it's actually a warning sign that you're developing a more serious problem with alcohol. So it's that idea that everything is good in moderation, but when your body starts accommodating and almost counting on you having more or being able to take on more alcohol each time, that's indicative that this is becoming a little bit more routine. and that your physiology is adjusting for that. And it's important to note that that high tolerance has nothing to do with BAC. What you're looking at is that is how intoxicated you are. So, or that is how intoxicated you feel versus how intoxicated you actually are. So where that starts getting scary is that the physiological components of a high tolerance are still going to take effect at that 0.2, 0.3 BAC, but you might not be able to recognize that. The next statement we've got is 1 12-ounce beer has as much alcohol in it as 1 1.5-ounce shot of hard liquor. So that's actually a fact. So looking at it, it's important to note that different types of alcohol contain different amounts of alcohol. So a regular old Corona, Bud Light, whatever, is going to have less alcohol per volume than that craft beer or that malt liquor. Keep that in mind. So just because it fits in a cup does not make it one drink. You're going to be looking at, a huge variety even among some of these canned beers, even among the craft beers. And let's take a look at liquor. There's a difference between drinking 5 o'clock vodka and drinking Bacardi 151. So you have to take a look at the proof factor to determine alcohol, because 80 proof, that's going to have just over half the alcohol that something than like 151 or Everclear. So you're not looking at the fluid ounces, you're looking at how much alcohol is contained therein. If you're interested in learning more about college student drinking and the resources I use to generate this PowerPoint, this is my list of references. A lot of this, does come from our parent program, Step Up, out of Arizona State. But a big chunk of it also came from collegedrinkingprevention.gov. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and questions about this content.